Hi guys, and welcome again to the Excelsior Talk. Today I have the big pleasure to speak with another of the most famous and important coach of the world. The man who created the Yoda free training system, the trainer who coached athletes like Ryan Terry, Stephen Lowers, John De La Rosa, Alexander Monero, Cody Drobot, and the 7 times Mr.O 212 Flex Lewis, and more great athletes, of course. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Neil Hill. Hi, Neil.
Hey,
how are you?
Hey, firstly, obviously, I appreciate you taking the time to allow me to come on to obviously do the interview with you. I know that obviously there's a lot of things taking place in the world at the moment, and I hope that this interview that we do and share together is gonna bring some form of positivity into the fitness industry and health industry as a whole, but also give somebody the opportunity to hopefully learn something through this time where they're obviously going through certain situations.
Yes, as you know, the situation is so bad in the world, and as you know, in Italy is one of the most affected nations from coronavirus. And we are living an unreal situation. We are locked in our home, can live a normal life, and most people can't work. And a lot of us who love fitness and bodybuilding can't work out in the gym since 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. And how is the situation there where you live? Is like Italy? And how are your athletes living this bad situation?
Well, I think that, it's just really started to, or the UK government have only just started really taking action, obviously, with bringing certain rules and stopping and enforcing people from interacting when it comes to public gatherings, etc. And without sounding negative here, it's actually pretty frustrating because I feel this is something that the UK should have done many, many, many weeks ago. They could obviously see the situation unfolding and rapidly taken some form of control throughout certain parts of Italy, and obviously at different times throughout in Italy. Obviously, your Prime Minister took action and obviously quarantined certain areas, and then obviously it became a quarantined complete country in a sense. And it's not a matter. Yeah, and it's not a matter of finger pointing because this is very naive. This is an innocently naive on your president's position. Remember, Italy was the very first country to be hit with with a lot of cases, so it was very, very new to them. Do you understand? It was very, very new. So there were a lot of decisions which must have been extremely difficult. And I'm sure there will be some people in Italy who feel that, the government could have done more. But we also have to take into consideration that they were really the only first country who were dealing with this. Okay, yes, China. This is where we know the virus took place and was formed and started. But China have been very restrictive with giving information on how to fight against this virus. So it was Italy who first saw the brunt of this problem. And obviously they started to have to face very difficult decisions on a governmental level over a number of time. And then obviously they transitioned those closures in certain states and cities and eventually Italy at some point. My point is that the UK could have learned a lot by listening to the Italian president and the government. And I feel that the UK have been extremely slow with taking measures. Now, some people may say that they didn't want to be very hard with their decisions straight away because people will be worried and confused. But listen, the public deserve to know exactly what they're dealing with. We're supposed to be a united country. It's supposed to be United Britain. So my point is I feel that it's only fair that we are explained and told about what we are facing so that we as people can make the right choices. Now, there's obviously a bigger picture here. It's not about finger pointing and trying to create problems within the government. But what I am saying is that I just feel that a lot more should have been done before now. It does appear that this virus is spreading very, very rapidly. And I do feel that it could actually get much, much worse in a number of weeks' time. How long that weeks? 4, 6, 8 weeks than it possibly would have been in Italy. Now, obviously, statistics are coming back all the time with obviously how many people have been infected, etc. And unfortunately, there's a vast amount of people, obviously, which have passed away. And it's a very, very, very sad situation. Yeah. But I do feel that we as people need to come together and educate each other, motivate each other, keep each and every one of us accountable to something. And accountability to me is at least doing something positive on a mental and a physical side in the environment that you're in, because obviously restrictions have taken place now. There are no gyms open, etc. So even though it's quite new in the UK, it's obviously been present with this virus for quite some time, but it was only last night that the UK Prime Minister said that there was going to be a complete shutdown throughout the whole of the UK. But I still feel that with what he's applied and implementing, I still feel a lot more needs to take place. And I do feel that that people should be held responsible for their actions. So what do I mean by that? Well, if we know that we have some form of curfew and we're not supposed to be out socializing, then if we do that, there should be repercussions. There should be some form of fines and penalties, because it's not right that we as people play God with other people's health. If we choose to step into an environment where we potentially could get cross-contamination because we're reckless and we're not listening to what we should be doing, then we should be held accountable in some way, because it's not, everything about this situation is a very sad situation. And I feel that we all have to do more and we all have to learn more. But I do feel that a lot of countries should have, the UK is one, should have learned a lot from what your Prime Minister has been doing and what they are doing. And I have a huge amount of respect for obviously the whole of the population, and love and prayers going out to everybody there in Italy. I really hope that obviously it's sometime very soon that this virus can be forced down. And at some point, obviously, hopefully there's going to be some form of vaccination which is going to take place. And when we look back in 6 or 12 months' time, we all learn a lot about ourselves and life, and also start to ask ourselves what's most important in life. Yes. And more measures need to be done. But I think that's something that we need to look at in the future. At the moment, we need to think about being sensible with what we do and staying mentally and physically healthy.
Yeah. As always, I say that everyone has to do his best. For me, I have to stay home to stay safe, to save for my parents. Everyone has to do the best that they can. I think if everyone do their best, they can. The situation can improve soon. But if just 1 or 2 people don't do what have to do, the situation become every time, every second bad, worse. And I think everyone has to do his best. It's the best way to improve the situation soon, this bad situation for all. Then I think that some of the people who do fitness and bodybuilding, as you know, now are they home and they work out at home. We see a lot of video, a lot of Instagram videos, that they are work out with some weight at home, with some dumbbell or some stuff that they use to warm up in their backstage. I think that. What advice can you give this man for these people that want to work out at home? Do you consider that is useful to use something to work out at home or not?
Yes, I think so. I think definitely some form of weight-bearing load or activity is going to create stimulus within our muscle. And obviously, we're referring to most people which are used to going to a gym environment. Most people, when they go to a gym environment and they train, they don't have to be professional athletes. They don't have to be amateur athletes. They could be everyday mum and dads or teenagers or middle age who want to go to the gym and do something physical, because for them, that's their way of therapy. Yes, we know that obviously endorphins are released when we do something that we enjoy and something that challenges us. And obviously weight bearing load is a perfect example. But exactly the same way as if we were doing some form of aerobic activity. So aerobic activity would be based around us obviously becoming cardiovascular fitter, etc., and our overall general health. So I definitely feel that if we can do something physical at home, in some ways preferably something which is cardiovascular and something which is also impacting, on a broader spectrum when it comes to muscular activity and stimulus, then I feel that on a mental and a physical outlet, that has to be very, very positive to us. And I know that a lot of people will have very limited ability to use weights, because a lot of people won't have any form of free weights or machines at home. Some people will maybe have nothing at home, nothing at all. But there will be maybe a percentage of people which have some form of dumbbells or maybe some barbells or some bands obviously different straight bands are perfect, because you can actually do a lot of different exercises with very few pieces of equipment. It's funny because obviously a lot of my clients now are unable to finish their preferred fitness program because they are individuals which train in a gym environment. So I'm designing now programs based around them being able to train and stay active at home. And you'll be very, very, very surprised the amount of exercises that you can do at home with very limited equipment. But also, you'll be very surprised how productive your ability to neurologically create stimulus and load when it comes to isometric tension. So what do I mean by isometric tension? So obviously you've competed many times, and there are a lot of athletes who the day after the show, or maybe 2 days after the show, they suffer quite badly with DOMs. They're very, very sore.
Yes.
And that's not because they were pumping up backstage. No, that's because when they were on stage and they were tensing, they created they created a very hybrid form of connecting with muscle neurologically. You can actually build muscle tissue like that. So there are a lot of different exercises that you can perform when it comes to isometric tension, and you need no weights whatsoever. However, this is something I do a lot with my clients. Anyone who's worked with me, especially when it comes to compete, will know that I do a lot of isometric work, not with bands. It's all mind-muscle connection, etc. And that is much harder than the workout. The way that I structure the plan is extremely taxing. And you also have to be very careful how often you do this and how you microcycle this, because you could very easily overtrain with this type of exercise as well. Yeah. So, I think there are definitely a lot of options out there. There may not be a lot of information on this subject out there, but there's certainly a lot that we can all do in our own home environments. But we have to adapt. And if we look at life in general, and we look at how we have revolved and we've adapted to new situations and scenarios, it's no different. It's about being taken away from your comfort zone and having to now use a different platform or a different way of thinking in order to create the same ability to connect with our muscle like we would in the gym. And it's definitely something which is possible. To me, I would rather go to the gym and train and have a really hard workout than have a really hard isometric workout, because isometric tension is far, far, far more impacting when it comes to mentally fatiguing you and physically fatiguing you. Believe me, it is. And when I train with my athletes, because I train with my athletes a lot, I try to train with an array of different athletes, and of course that's going to be limited. It depends where I am in the world and etc. My athletes will say they would rather do a workout together than an isometric session, because it is brutally impacting. But as I said, it's a great way for us to create muscular stimulus, and that is something that you do at home. You don't do it in the gym. So it's a perfect way of us being able to be connected with our minds and our bodies.
Yeah. As we know, the last week of your Yoda free training, as you know, is the third week. The third week, in particular, is with a high range of reps and the
Yes.
low set. That it can be a solution for someone, because with a lot of reps with light weights, they can do a very good workout. Of course, with isometric too, it can be a solution for someone. Right.
Yeah. Yes, of course it is. Yes. And when we look at training, there's a big misconception out there where people think in order to build muscle tissue, your repetition range has to be low. That is not the case whatsoever. There's been so many case studies shown that high rep training has a lot of benefits when it comes to creating muscular stimulus. And when we look at muscular stimulus, that's going to take place in variable and multiple different microcycles when it comes to reps. Now, the reason why I say reps is that if you and I walked into a gym and we were going to say, for instance, okay, so we're gonna lift as much weight as we can with perfect form, and we want to try and hit about 8 to 12 repetitions, perfect reps, good reps, and we chose a weight where we really busted our asses. Our range of motion was perfect. Everything about our movement patterns were in line. And we got to that point of failure where we could not perform any more full repetitions, and we both failed at 10 reps. You create, obviously, muscular impact in some form. And that type of muscular impact, in theory, is going to be targeting fast-twitch muscle fibers and more so myofibria hypertrophy. It's a form of hypertrophy which takes place. Now, when we increase the reps dramatically and we go the opposite way, and maybe now we're looking at high repetitions, and high repetitions we could say is anything from 20 plus repetitions. We're now using a different form of energy system to supply us with the fuel. We're also now using a different form of muscular fiber being brought into play. So you could say there's going to be a crossover between probably type 2A and slow twitch muscle fibers, and we're going to be hitting and targeting sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. The weights that we use in our high rep range weeks are obviously going to be lighter than they would in our heavy weeks. That's obviously a natural transition which is going to take place. But we can create a very powerful environment to create adaptation and force progressive overload. People talk about progressive overload and think that progressive overload only goes hand in hand with low rep training. That's not the case. That is not the case whatsoever. Progressive overload can be measured in multiple forms. And high rep training is a great tool for us to target a higher rep range, create muscular stimulus, reduce the risk of injury, or certainly reduce our ability to pick up, say joint-related injuries like tendonitis, etc. Because we know that obviously when we're constantly using heavy weight, and we know that that weakest part of our movement pattern is probably going to be relatable to a tendon or ligament. When we hear people tearing a muscle, it tends to take place at a tendon, yes? And if we hear about people picking up tendonitis, it tends to happen, obviously, at the tendon. That's why it's called tendonitis. You don't hear very often of people tearing muscle. It tends to be, soft connective tissue or tissue, which is taking the whole brunt of that stress and load. And obviously, that is obviously a tendon. And when we're constantly lifting heavy week after week after week after week, that's a lot of stress and load. So the benefits of using an array of different rep ranges and microcycling your training has a lot of positive effects that take place. Now, I'm not saying that somebody should be doing high repetition training week after week after week. I'm a big advocate of microcycling. But obviously, at this present time, doing something in our home environments is much better than doing nothing at all. And there will be some people who will get more muscular stimulation from high rep training than low repetition training. So there's always going to be some people which will benefit from this massively, a little more than others.
Yes, you are now are explaining that the principle of the Yoda free training. of course, because your training system is based on change the repetition, change the volume around 3 weeks, right?
Yes. Well, in theory, yes. So what I mean by that is that when we look at Y3T, on paper, it looks like a 3-week training program. But that's because when I've designed this, and I've obviously put it out there to share, it's very important that people understand the basics and the foundations of what they need to learn. If you try to give people too much information too soon, then it is very hard for them to break this down. And you'll probably know that obviously I've released a number of ebooks over the last sort of 5 years. And what I'll find, I mean, I even had it over the last number of days. Some people will message me randomly. I released a new ebook last Thursday. It's Y3T Reload. It's a great ebook. That's not why I've come on here to talk about the ebook. I'm just talking. But I've had people message me and say, oh, okay, so when I do this training program, how am I supposed to apply, or when am I supposed to apply certain techniques? And I've simply replied back and said, you have not read the ebook. You've only just gone straight to the workout and you just want to now follow the workout, but you need to learn the foundations and understand how you apply the program before you just perform the program. So my point is that even though on paper, Y3T is a 3-week training program where you will do week 1, then you will do week 2, then you'll do week 3, then you'll go back to week 1, week 2, week 3, week 1, week 2, week 3. It's not necessarily like that. For my private one-to-one clients and all my obviously online clients and my athletes, they follow different structures. So for instance, some of my clients will be following week 1, week 2, week 3, week 1, week 2, week 3. So some of them will be following 1 week 1, 3 week 2s, 1 week 3, week 1, 3 week 2s, 1 week 3. Some of my clients will be following obviously maybe 1 week 1, 1 week 2, and 2 week 3s. So it's going to depend on a number of factors, but most of these factors will depend on their overall body type, ectomorph, mesomorph, etc., what their blood work is like, what their questionnaire comes back with what their answers, age, etc. I would never design a Y3T workout which was relatable based around 2 or 3 consistent week 1s for somebody who's in their late 40s or 50s. Why? Because as we get older, our tendons potentially can become more brittle. It's just a normal reaction. Not everybody. So my point is that obviously the programs are designed based around each individual, but it is a microcycle, which is hitting different rep ranges, 3 different rep ranges, and 3 different muscle fiber activations, and of course an array of different energy systems. And the energy systems which come into play, they're just going to be a natural byproduct in relationship to the reps, etc. Yes.
Yeah. Perfect. And I think you have explained perfectly the foundation of Yoda free training. That it's crazy to know that, because I follow you since some years ago. Then I study all your ebook, and then I try in the past to one of your workout. I apply your rules about that. But as you say, that is so big, a big concept to know. To learn. Yes. It require time to learn it.
Yeah, and
of course.
And you know what we talk about requires time. This is a perfect time for people to get educated.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people not walking, a lot of people not working, and there's a lot of people, you're an athlete, you're at a very high level. I'm sure that when you go to the gym, even athletes who maybe obtained, very good results, a lot of those athletes don't train correctly. Their movement patterns could be very inefficient. Their form could be very negative in relationship to movement patterns. And unfortunately, even though the internet is very good for sharing information, a lot of people actually don't want to learn. They just want to see and duplicate. And it is important that people understand the foundations of how to train properly. Because what we do in the gym is the only chance that we have to create stimulus on a connective tissue aspect, where, you know, from anaerobic to aerobic activity. So it is important that we understand. And once you understand the foundations and you start logging your progress as far as your reps and your sets, it's actually a very, very easy program to follow. It's just that most people, they just want to follow the most basic thing, even if that's not optimal. To them, it doesn't matter. They're just going to do something. Well, to me, I like to work with athletes and individuals, and not all of my clients are athletes. My clients come from a full spectrum of different individuals. To me, it's very important that the clients that I work with want the very best results, because I'm giving them the very best of my time, my efforts, and my knowledge. So for me, it's a personal thing.
Yeah, and it's important to say that this system is not only for the athletes, but for all, right?
Yes, exactly. It doesn't matter if you're not somebody who's a competitive athlete. As long as you're going to the gym and you want to see some form of performance change, so whether it's strength, whether it's agility, whether it is building muscle tissue, whether it's getting leaner, Y3T has the ability to have massive positive effects on all of what I've just spoken about and much more.
Yeah, perfect. I think is all. Then can you give for a novice some advice when he approached to the gym for the first time?
I think, to be honest with you, you need to be eager to learn. It's very important that you want to learn. And it's very important that you also are not somebody who's expecting to see the results straight away. Everything about training or everything about a fitness program is about learning a little every day. And every time we learn something new, we're able to apply ourselves and we're able to get more out of how we apply. So what do I mean by that? Is that when we go to the gym, in most cases, our time is limited. So we don't have the ability to be in the gym for 10 hours a day because of work and family and wives or children and everything else in between. So we have limited time in the gym. So to me, when I'm in the gym, I encourage people to be as positive as they can with that time, so that they can spend the amount of time training correctly and spend as much time out of the gym, because we know that we grow outside the gym, not in the gym. Yeah. So to me, for those which are very new, be patient. Please be ready to learn. Be inquisitive and ask questions. But if you're going to ask questions from individuals, try to interact with people which generally have very good understanding and track record results, because unfortunately the internet can be a very, very bad place for gathering information, where I feel that people can be very reckless with their decisions. They can waste time, they can spend money that they don't need to spend. So I think it's going to be, obviously, it's a slow but steady process. Look at this as a lifestyle and a journey. Don't look at it as something which is going to happen overnight. It's not a 100-meter sprint. It's a marathon. It's something that is going to repetitively take place day after day after day, and be patient.
Yes. About patience, I said you say the patience. Okay, I listen a lot of guru, a lot of athletes, pro athletes, very important, and the common feature of all are the word patience. That patience is important, is the most important thing in this sport, because with the patience you can achieve all, right?
Yes, I think that passion is a massive part in everything that I do. I'm very passionate about my work for multiple different reasons. There's something which is very personal to me, which keeps me accountable to myself and keeps me very passionate about what I do. I started training when I was 19 years of age. I had no interest in training. It just naturally happened. But once I decided that I wanted to train, I'm one of those people who has to do the very best that I can in what I do, because there are some things in life that I'm not good at. I have disabilities which stop me from doing some things that I want to. And sometimes you have to be honest and realistic with life. Not everything in life is possible. It's okay to say, you know, you need to be positive, but you also have to be realistic, because how would you feel if I was telling you that something was achievable and I knew it never was? I knew it was never achievable, and I led you to believe that this goal of yours was going to happen. Now you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know that there are some things which we can't achieve because we're not genetically gifted. We're not intelligent enough. We are not in those environments. But there are a lot of things that we can achieve which are out of our reach. But if we apply ourselves day after day after day after day, and we master how to get better, at some point we're going to reach them and grasp them. That is a realistic challenge, but it's a challenge. It's not something which is going to become easy. But there are so many things in life that we can all challenge ourselves. And there are going to be some things which are going to be a lot more challenging. I think, you know, being an athlete at heart, I've been knocked down a number of times, but I've always got back up because I truly believed in my heart, and with my passion, it was achievable. I was always realistic with myself. You know, I knew, you know, there were some things I was like, I can't do that. You know, I'm not going to be able to, so for instance, I was an international swimmer. I swam for Wales from the age of about 7 or 8 to the age of 15. I was the smallest swimmer in our club. I was the smallest international swimmer in our squad. I was never going to be an Olympic record holder because I was not tall enough. I'm 5'6", and if you look at Olympic swimmers now, they're all probably, some of these swimmers like 6'6". They got long limbs. So what? I'm a defeatist because I knew that was never going to happen? No, I'm realistic, but it's okay because I knew I went as far as I could, and then I chose another sport, not because I'm a defeatist, because I knew that there was a different purpose for me. Does that make sense? But you cannot measure success on a trophy. That would be a very sad statement to say that, you know, to be successful, you have to win. Because if that was the case, 99.999999999% of people in the world will fail.
Yeah.
They would fail. And that's not how you can measure it.
It's an important concept, yes. It's an important challenge ourselves and don't look at the others, but do our best and achieve what we can do at our best. I think is the most important.
Exactly. And do you know what? Some of the clients that I've got the most out of, as far as personal satisfaction, they wasn't athletes winning, you know, major titles. They were individual who was fighting against their own goals in life. People which were obese, people which had obesity, people which were going to pass away much earlier than they should do because their overall general health and well-being was in a very negative state when they were in their 30s and 40s. And with us working together, they've lost tens and tens and tens of pounds. Their blood work is completely reversed. In some cases, they're no longer diabetics. And those individuals are so rewarding to work with because you see so many positive things happening, and not just through a visual. It's more a psychological side of things as well. And you know that you made a massive difference to those people. That is very, very rewarding for me. It's not about a trophy. It's about the fact that you're actually saving somebody's life, or you're potentially giving them more years of life. And you can't put a price on that. What would you rather have? Would you rather have 7 Mr. Olympia titles, or would you rather live an extra 7, 10, 20 years? I know what I would have. I would wish for, you know. And Flex is, and I'm talking about, obviously, you know, I'm referring to Flex. Flex is a very, very healthy individual, but he's also a very grounded, balanced individual as well. He knows what's more important in life. Yes, he has his goals on what he wants to achieve on stage, and believe you me, his goals off the stage are probably even higher. but he's a very rounded, balanced individual, mate. Very, very balanced, rounded individual. And you know, that relationship with me and Flex is something totally different. That's, you know, that's something which is even, you know, even different in itself.
Yeah, that about Flex. Then, how I said before, you are one of the best coach on the planet. You coached the very lot of champions like Flex. And then about Flex, how is coach some player like Flex? Some player like him, because has athletes is okay, but a player like Flex, how is coached one man like Flex? 7 times Mr. Olympia.
I don't know if I can answer this, because what you have to understand is that when I started working with Flex, he was 19 years of age.
Yeah.
He was 19 years of age. He's 36 now. I've been coaching him for 17 years. Everything about what I do with Flex is just another day in the office for me. It's just another day. It doesn't feel any different, because we've just done so many we've had so many amazing life experiences together. Like we shared some amazing moments that you can't explain, some things which you can't film. We've had ups, we've had downs. We've been together as a coach and athlete longer than most marriages. And we've got a very special relationship. It's something very, very unique. It's not like a normal coach athlete relationship. Do I put more into Flex than other athletes? No, absolutely not. Anyone who's really worked with me will know that I'm very given with my time. Yes, some people get more of my time because it's like a service. When you are paid for a service, you choose what service you want. Yes.
Yeah.
But it's a very special relationship, right? So, you know, we have new goals this year. We're both extremely driven. We're self-motivated. It's very rarely Flex will come to me and speak to me because he's feeling deflated about something. Because we're very much the same. If something negative happens, it fuels us in a positive way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It doesn't. It's never a setback. No, because even though setbacks happen with everyone in life. But it's something which we learn from and something that we actually thrive from, because we both thrive off challenge. But again, I'm very, very, very hard on Flex with what I expect from him. And there'll be times where he'll be happy and he'll say, "Hey, I feel good." And I'll look at him and I'll say, "You look like shit. You know, why do you think that you look good? You know, you don't." But it's not because I'm a bad coach. It's because I'm an honest coach like that. I do expect. But I don't expect something which is not possible. I only expect what is possible. But he is a very, very driven individual. And one thing that I'll never be able to, relate to, and it also comes back a little bit in the opposite direction, is that I feel for Flex a lot, because he's achieved so much from his hard work, not somebody else's hard work. He's achieved so much from his hard work. Yet people expect so much from him. You know, they expect him to perform, and they expect him to do this, and they expect him to do that. Do you realize what the fucking pressures must be like on an individual like that, when you are expected to do something, you know, time and time and time again? Do you realize the pressures that must bring onto an individual? Way higher than anyone. Why? Because 99.99999% of people have not won 7 Mr. Olympia titles.
Yeah.
So, and then that also comes in my behalf, because if Flex doesn't perform and he's not in shape, who's going to take responsibility? Me.
Yeah.
It's on my shoulders, you know. But at the same time, my shoulders are strong and they're broad, and I really enjoy challenge, but I also know what's realistic. That's why we took off 2019. The whole purpose of taking 2019 off was to bring a new physique to the stage. That was never going to happen in 2019. Now, do I think that if Flex stepped on stage at the 2019 Mr. Olympia, he could have won it? Honestly, I'll let you answer that question. Bearing in mind, remember the last time you saw Flex Lewis, he was 212 pounds.
Yeah.
He was not, if he would have stepped on stage in 2019, he probably would have stepped on stage at about 218, 220. So that look would have been deadly on stage. But myself and Flex and Ali, because we always work together as a team, and this is his wife, we always discuss and we look at the bigger picture. And the bigger picture was that we need to concentrate on a solid 18 months to 2 years off stage and then bring a new physique to the stage. And this new physique, which he's building and sculpturing at the moment, is a very impressive physique. It's not a 212 physique at all. It is an open class physique. And I am excited for him to unveil that look when he competes next.
We were waiting for that. We were waiting for the open class in 2020. I'm sure that will be a great return on stage. I think, yes. Then about that relationship with Flex. Nowadays, a lot of athletes change their coach more easily.
Mm-hmm.
I trust that give time at your coach is important. And are you agree with me?
Yes, I think that it's not about loyalty. Now, what do I mean by that? Some of my clients will message me and say, hey, loyal to you, coach. It's like, you don't need to be loyal to me. If what we're doing is not working, go and work with somebody else. I'm okay with that. That doesn't offend me. But I feel that there are a lot of people who aren't patient, who jump from coach to coach. They don't give that coach time to learn their bodies. And they don't take responsibility for themselves. That means the client, that means the athlete. Some athletes' bodies are very difficult to work with. I mean, they are. Some athletes' bodies are very, very difficult and hard to work with, and they're not a simple fix. It's a work in progress, you could say. So I do feel that it's important that you're patient enough and honest enough to give your coach the time and experience to learn your body. Now, there will be some cases where the athlete and the coach, or the coach and the athlete, they're just not compatible. They just don't fit together. And that might be for multiple different reasons. But it's not personal. It is what it is. Sometimes an athlete and coach just get that right connection and that relationship where they understand each other and what they do together works really well. And sometimes it just doesn't. And would I expect somebody to stay loyal in those situations? No, because it's not a natural synergy. It's not balanced. And I would encourage, somebody to step away. There have been clients of mine which have stepped away from work with me. There's been times where I've stepped away from clients. And sometimes you have to do things which are, better for the long-term relationship rather than the short-term relationship. But I do feel that far too many people jump from coach to coach to coach to coach to coach to coach to coach. And in a lot of those cases, a lot of those coaches may be doing lots of different things. And then that creates more confusion because then you'll never know what works, Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So, but again, that's a personal thing. I do feel that having the right coach can be a massive financial benefit. Financial, emotional, spiritual, on all levels. If you have the right coach, can make a massive, massive difference to your career or the way you look at life in general and perform and move forward. And more importantly, stay healthy. Because there are a lot of people doing things and they're not considering their health. And there are a lot of coaches out there which are playing God with their athletes' health with no consideration of the long-term or even the short-term effects, which I feel is extremely selfish, dishonest, and something that I do not do with my clients.
Yeah. Thank you. Great. Then about the greatest athlete you coached, what do these champions have in common overall about mentality? What is the main feature?
Possibly a number of things. They're afraid to fail, to be honest with you. Some of them may say, yeah, some of them will say that, you know, they don't mind failing. Nobody likes failing, but it's how you learn from that process, if that makes sense. Yes. And there's different, and again, you cannot extract failure on your place on stage. To me, you extract failure where you feel that you could have done better. Is it you could have trained harder? Is it the fact that maybe you trained too hard? Training harder than what's necessary is going to create an overtrained environment. If you want to create the perfect synergy of building muscle tissue and losing body fat, which most of our athletes want to do, or to say that we're looking at track and field athletes where they're looking to be at their peak physical performance for that one race or that one soccer game, for instance. If you train too hard, if you over diet, if you do too much anaerobic activity, if you undereat, you're going to underperform. The perfect program is when you do just enough training to create stimulus to allow reconnective growth and development to build muscle tissue. You're in a very slight calorie deficit where you slowly over many weeks lose body fat, but you're in a macronutrient surplus. In other words, you're eating enough macronutrients to build and repair muscle tissue. You are only doing what is necessary when it comes to your training stimulus, your cardio. That is the perfect environment. Just because you trained harder and you dieted harder, that doesn't mean that the outcome is going to become better. If anything, the outcome might potentially be worse, because there will be many people who have over dieted and they don't look so good come show day. And that's something that you can't put a price on. That comes down to experience and listening to your body. But I would say that all of my athletes, they're different in different ways. Ryan Terry is a very different individual to Flex Lewis. Steve Lauriers is a different individual to both of those. Alex Cambarero, John De La Rosa, Cody. Mike the Badass from Germany. They're very different. But they all have a common outlook, and that is they wish to succeed, and they want to challenge themselves on a daily basis and learn more about themselves to become better. I would say that is probably a crossover of what all of those great athletes want in life, I would say.
Perfect. This is amazing. One of the most important thing that I think is very, very, very amazing. Thanks for that. And then about nutrition, we don't speak about nutrition, and I wanted to ask you a question because you are one of the guru of the diet. And what is your approach on your athletes, and how is important the healthy of the gut for you?
Well, the gut health is pretty much the most important part of what we do. We know that our digestive system is the gateway to all activity within the human body. So when we eat foods, or when we consume fluids, or whatever we put in our mouth, and they are obviously broken down, they go into our digestive tract, our body then starts to send signals. So it sends signals through our endocrine system, through blood and nerve pulsation, and it's going to then supply an array of different environments when it comes to hormonal release. So whether it's increased thyroid function, whether it's a trigger of IGF-1 and growth hormone, whether it's a release of insulin, whether we are having the ability to spike our natural testosterone, which we know obviously is the male building block, you could say, within males, or maybe that we're rising estrogen in males where we don't want to. That all takes place to a certain extent within our digestive system, and far too many people, they don't put the time and the attention into making sure that their digestive system is aligned, it's clean, it's healthy, it's being activated correctly. A lot of people could be innocently creating free radical responses from foods that they have allergies to. foods that are creating inflammation within the gut. And as soon as we create inflammation in our gut, even if it's innocent, because we may be eating something healthy, but it doesn't mean that our bodies are able to utilize that food type. We may have intolerances to that type of food. Then how we release and entertain and cross-promote indirectly from positive hormone release could be dramatically very low and negative. When we go into a gym environment and we train very hard, we are going to be impacting and creating some form of free radical damage and some form of negative impact on our general digestive tract. So it's very important that when we take our pre or our intra or our post supplementation, it's very important that we are open-minded and knowledgeable enough to know what we should consume and what we shouldn't consume. Now, we know that sugar is a negative food type when it comes to inflammation. We know that sugar is not a good food to have when it comes to affecting and negatively impacting on our digestive system. Yet, it seems to be a big craze for quite some time now where people are having their Cocoa Pops before they train and after they train because it's high in sugar. Well, I don't understand why people don't take the time to realize that sugar is not just something that you should consume because it has the ability to spike your insulin levels and release insulin. You also have to understand the free radical responses which are taking place and how much that's going to impact on your gut health in general in a bad way. And we also know that as much as we want to create a positive, natural, anabolic environment when we train through the form of obviously insulin, we also need to make sure that the way that we release insulin is in a way which allows us to build muscle tissue and not gain body fat and not create other negative responses where then we force down IGF-1, growth hormone factor, testosterone. These are all positive hormones that we have the ability to release. It's so important that we understand what we should and what we shouldn't do. But the digestive system is such a massive part of the jigsaw. It's probably, the digestive system is just as important as the foods and the options of foods that we eat. So what do I mean by that? Is that we know that obviously quality proteins have the ability to build and repair muscle tissue. We know that quality carbohydrates are a good way for us to fuel, but also they can be very, say muscle sparing, for instance. We know that healthy fats have a very positive effect on multiple different organs and the way that we can activate as human beings. But we also need to make sure that the quantities and what we consume align with our bodies as well. And unfortunately, the human body is not a simple, it's not a simple machine. But what we can do is that with the manipulation of food types and with the manipulation of changing our lifestyle habits when it comes to our training stimulus, when it comes to us making sure that we're adhering to a program, when we're taking the right supplementation, we can change our pathways and produce a very efficient machine, our bodies, of losing body fat, gaining muscle tissue, but more importantly, staying very, very healthy.
Stay very, very healthy. Yeah, I think it's more very, very important the health of the gut than to improve the health of gut. As you said, it's important to have a good supplementation and a good diet, and the quality of food is so important. But you say in one of your mail, then I want to advise everyone, to our listeners, that Neil have a mail that you could subscribe and have some information every day, some good information about diet, about workout, about other things that you have to know. Then you can learn a lot of things. I'm subscribed till 2017, I think.
Okay,
then,
cool. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I was one of the first on your mail. Then about cheat meal, what is your idea? What do you think about cheat meal?
I think the cheat meals mentally can have benefits. They're not always productive on our digestive system, tend to be the complete opposite. Cheat meals, when I look at cheat meals, it's a way of giving a client some form of normality to enjoy something which is off their plan and something that they can emotionally and physically enjoy with their partners. Now, not all of my clients are in relationships. Not all of them have girlfriends or boyfriends. But in most cases, most of my clients have partners. And sometimes it's very hard for a partner to understand what an athlete has to go through daily with their ability or the essential need to stay on a calorie restricted diet. And most of the time, a lot of partners are not eating the same food as those individuals. So I feel that there are a lot of benefits where you can bring some normality back into a relationship with your partner, and you can just kind of like enjoy life a little bit for that moment and eat something which tastes amazing, even if it is not so good, because I feel that it's a great tool for us to realize what's important and also not take things for granted. Yes, but you also have to understand that 99.9% of bad foods, they're going to create some form of inflammation in the gut. So what happens is that you have those foods, it makes you it tastes great. For a couple of days later, you may be paying the consequences where you just feel bloated, you go to the toilet more often, your stomach feels a bit messed up. But mentally, you might think, hey, that's okay, because what I enjoyed with that moment was worth what I have to go through for the next couple of days. So I do encourage cheat meals, or in some cases refeed meals. So refeed is basically the same type of food types, but just larger quantities. And I also do a lot of carb cycling with my clients. Some of my clients will be on high carbs, some will be on low, some will be medium, and I will cycle their carbs in relationship to how their body composition to changing.
Yeah. Perfect. You replay very well. And about all that we have speaking about training, about diet, about all. And the last question of this Excelsior talk is about the Olympia. After all that's going on, what will the future for you of the Olympia be? Any prediction? Of course, about the return of Flex.
Yeah, it's not possible to speak at this point, because even though John De La Rosa, who is currently getting ready for the New York Pro, some of the athletes have already competed this year, and obviously we're chasing Olympia qualifications, etc. So we know that Flex is already qualified. Ryan Terry's already qualified. Alex Cambarero now is already qualified. Steve Laureus has not yet qualified. And there's obviously Cody Drobot. We're going to be doing our pro debut in the Tampa Pro. That's a game plan. Mike Summerfield from Germany was going to be doing the New York Pro. So of course we don't know exactly what's going to be taking place over the next couple of months. But the thing is because there are so many unknowns at the moment, it's not possible to give any predictions on what is going to take place. All I can say is that if the Olympia does go ahead, whether I have 5 athletes in the show or 3 athletes in the show or 2 athlete shows, we're going to do our very, very best to be the very best that we can on the day. And I do feel that the athletes that I have in my team are and all have the ability to place extremely well in their divisions. So obviously, of course, selfishly, I hope that the Mr. Olympia is going to take place, because it's the pinnacle show in our industry at the moment, where the athletes have the one opportunity every year to showcase their physiques on the Mr. Olympia stage. Yes. I know that obviously the Rock Games, it's not actually called the Rock Games, but Athleticon is going to be a new show. I can see that show gathering huge momentum over the foreseeable future when it launches, and year after year. Excited, obviously, what's going to be taking place there. But I think rather than focusing on the Mr. Olympia, I'm focusing on the bigger picture, which obviously is making sure that my athletes, my clients, stay healthy. And some of my athletes are fortunate enough that they can do some form of training, and some are just on lockdown. And there's nothing we can do about it. But I do feel that if Olympia does take place this year, I do feel that the lineup could be possibly one of the most competitive lineups we had for a long time. We know that obviously one of my former athletes, William Bonac, William always comes in shape. William could win that title. William could win that title. Brandon Curry could regain that title again. He's obviously the defending champion. He's got I'm sure that he's so motivated to win that title again. You have Flex Lewis stepping on stage. He has the ability to win that show. No doubts about it. Not even 1% questionable. Hadi Chopin, he could have possibly won last year. If William Bonac won last year, nobody could have argued. If Hadi Chopin won last year, nobody could have argued. With Brandon Curry winning last year, nobody could argue, because the three of those athletes are all totally different, look very different, and they could have all won. I think the lineup is going to be exceptional if it goes ahead. But I think that what I would rather do is send my best wishes to everybody and say, please stay safe. It's very important that you stay safe and you stay united. You have respect for those people around you. You're supportive about those people. But I also want to say a big shout out to Yamamoto Nutrition, because I was extremely fortunate to sign with this company probably about 15 months ago. And it's one of the most, it was one of the best decisions I ever made in my career in the industry. It's not just about the company and what their morals stand for. It's everything that they do as far as bringing what I feel the most cutting-edge bioavailable product line to the industry. It is absolutely fucking sensational. It's a nutraceutical line. It's a pharmaceutical line. And I feel very, very proud to be a part of this company. And, it's just very important, guys. When you look at overall health and well-being, we're inundated with so many different supplement companies out there, and a lot of companies are very good at marketing themselves for you to sell a product. But please understand, there can be some vast differences between the quality of what you think, because everything looks very similar, and unfortunately it's not. It is not. It's like buying organic broccoli or buying mass-produced broccoli. When you look at profiles, they're not the same. They're not the same. Yeah.
Yeah, this is one of your relationship with Italy, of course, because
yes.
Yamamoto is the brand of Italy's brand, of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel very emotionally attached to. I feel very, very emotionally attached to Italy because of obviously my relationship with Yamamoto. I visited Italy 4 times last year. 4 times I went to Italy in 2019. But I'm also somebody who's always been a big car lover. So, of course, to me, Italy, let's be honest, it's got to be one of the most coolest fucking countries in the world. You've got the best food. You've got the best cars. You've got the best fashion. You are extremely passionate. You have so much amazing history. It's a country that I feel very connected with. So even though I'm not Italian, I've always looked at the Italian country and people as a whole of people which are very, very prideful and very, very passionate about what they do. And of course, I obviously want to send my very, very best to everyone, obviously in Italy, not because of my relationships with Yamamoto, because I just feel what's taking place is just a very sad situation. And if I can ever do anything just to help a little bit or educate a little bit, then I would always want to do my best to make that happen.
Thanks for that amazing shout out. Thanks for all, Neil. Then thanks for your ability with us. A big thanks from Italy. I hope that the situation will improve soon. Then we could return to our normal life, to enjoy time with our family, with our friends, and finally return to work out in our happy place, to the gym. Hope to see you, of course, in the next stage. I will compete in the 220 contest.
Okay,
I will plan to do New York Pro and Puerto Rico, but I don't know if we can fly. Then
yes, I understand.
Yeah, I have the point. Now I'm qualified for the Olympia because I'm top 5 of the for the standing point. Then it's good, but we will know if the Olympia will be. Then, of course, a big thanks. Thanks for your ability again, and thanks for all. This is Excelsior Talk. Be safe, and thank you a lot.
Thank you. I appreciate it, guys. Stay safe. Yes.